Hi, I'm John Sarakis with the Digital Mastermind. You're listening to The Climb. This is where agency owners and leaders tune in to get growth tips and strategies for growing their businesses. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Climb, episode number 14, where today we're going to speak about a remote workforce, distributed workforce, depending on how you want to talk about that. And when I say that, what comes to mind, Dave?
I guess right now everything on the top of mind is, just working from home. A lot of people in the digital marketing space are working from home right now. So, back in the day, I heard remote and I thought, oh, outsourced, distributed workforce. I think of your onshore team working from home. So I think there is an interesting note about the language
I
or the
think of
connotation.
when I started early in my career, the IT department having to log into my computer, essentially, right? So it's like, oh, you can work remote now. And then you would have to, they could log into my computer or I could log into it from home. And it was just slow and it was painful.
Right.
And I also think about the loss of, I guess, the cliche like water cooler talk.
Yeah.
I enjoy coming into the office and smiling and high fiving. And granted, we're in times now where that's why we're even having this podcast. Although we do have a great guest, Jason Rosenbaum. But yeah, to me, I don't like it. But I think it's something I'm going to have to adapt and get used to.
I've experienced both and through two different perspectives. So previously, before being a business owner, I did work from home for a Fortune 500 company and I loved it. And I loved it because in the older corporation sense of the world, that water cooler talk is such a drain of energy and time. It's not just the water cooler, it's the worthless meetings, it's the meetings about meetings. And so much of my day was occupied with worthlessness that when I started working remote, I got everything I needed to get done for the day in about 2.5 hours. And I was able to mow my lawn. I was able to play with my dogs. Like,
Star
I
employee.
was still one of the most productive people on the team in 3 hours or less of the day because everybody else had to deal with that BS.
Not to diminish your ability to execute and be productive, but to me that sounds like a really shitty company you're working for, right?
Man, it is a super well-known brand.
Is it? Okay. Yeah, we don't need to call them out.
Yeah.
But
But then as a business owner, I like being in an office because I like the camaraderie. But we don't have one of those old corporate stodgy environments that drains your life away. We have a very energetic, dynamic environment and we have a workforce that enjoys, coming together. So seeing it from the business owner perspective, I cherish the time that we get to spend in the office and build that culture and do events like the team likes to play Mario Kart on Fridays
right.
for lunch and at the end of the day. And then we do, lunches and potlucks and stuff like that. So, how does the potluck survive the COVID-19
It will
crisis?
not survive. But because nobody's going to be able to sample your food. What, are you going to give
Hell
them the
no,
recipe?
I'm not touching that Mac.
Yeah, no way. The chili cook off. I mean,
Right.
that's going to be gone.
So the rise of what did my wife say?
You're talking about the damn pizza
Digital
parties.
wine
Yeah.
happy hours. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, digital wine happy hours, digital pizza parties, and I guess
Yeah.
I got no interest in that. I mean, I love people, but and it's not that I don't eat pizza, but it's yeah, I don't know. I haven't adapted that way yet. I say that today, but based on new information, my positions, will continue to
Might be
change.
forced.
I might be forced. I've heard about kids now; they're having recess via Zoom meetings and video conferences. Can you imagine that? It's like
No.
that's
But that's
it,
like
literally.
not to take the weird approach, but that's like a pedophile hacker's, dream.
That is a weird approach.
Yeah.
Stumbling in that room,
I don't I
all
look,
these
now that I
kids
have a
screaming in
kid,
houses all over.
you read some crazy stuff, and now that I have a kid, like kids on webcam Facebook, like people tagging I just don't want my kid on social media, I guess. And I don't want them on a digital life have a digital life already.
Yeah, I can get that, but I think it's this nostalgia that you have for your childhood, but there's
Right.
the things that are going to change regardless. And yeah, I mean we're adapting. Granted, we have two offices where we have teams that have communicated via Zoom meetings, but now it's
I'm
this
pretty
week
sure.
alone. I did a pitch this week, a 2.5 hour pitch where I would if it's somebody that's within a 3 hour drive, I'll make that drive. But there's no way because they couldn't, right, because of the virus lockdown restrictions. So I did it. It went phenomenal. It went great. But yeah, that's something I'm adapting to. Now I've pitched to people in other parts of the country. It's understood. We're in two different
Sure.
places, and we weren't going to budget for it, or we didn't want to fly to that location. But um, yeah, it's something that I'm beginning to adapt. And now I'm thinking I might prefer to do that just based on the time saving. I mean, 3 hour drive. I mean,
Right.
hours.
That's a day. So I can guarantee you that coming after this is, our team's going to say, hey, we proved that we can work from home. We want to work from home more.
Sure.
I mean, that's coming.
Yep.
So
I think that's companies all over the world are going
for
to
everyone.
experience that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I've got to come to grips with that. And then that's part of the reason why I'm excited to hear from our guest is just how do you develop culture in those scenarios? How do you develop camaraderie and teamwork and all those things that the office traditionally brings? Because I think everyone right now is looking at the small business office as a luxury, and we're going to have a lot of small business office parks just kind of empty.
Yeah. Yeah, they're definitely going to take a hit, but we're going to see some type of new WeWork. Something is going to form out of this that we
Imagine,
haven't even imagined yet.
imagine owning one of those business condos, and not only is your business hurting right now because the economy, but now you also own a piece of real estate that's probably crashing in value.
By business condo, you mean like a WeWork?
No, like they'll have an office park which is like 200 units, and you buy the unit and you pay a mortgage, and if you pay it off outright, then you just have to pay the HOA, just like living in a residential condo, but
Oh
it's
no,
a
I wouldn't
business
aware of
condo.
that. Got
They have
it.
them all over here in Jacksonville,
Now
and
you
I've
just
looked
brought
at
me
them
to
plenty of
those
times.
soulless office parks, and it's just
Yes.
it's like where
Oh,
hope
lawyers,
and dreams
dentists.
die.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah,
they're
like
terrible.
ugh.
But we talk about debt is one of the reasons that people, businesses struggle at this time. Well, if you got own a business condo, ugh, God, I feel bad for people that are in that situation.
Yeah, no, my heart goes out to him. But this is an economy. This is how it goes. It's evolution, right? There's winners and there's losers, and just at the end of the day, make sure you have as much cash as possible, and you'll always be at the apex of that situation.
Sure.
And on that note, let's go ahead and bring in Jason Rosenbaum. Jason, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Oh, no, man, our pleasure. All right. So before we get into the remote working and distributed workforce, some of the things we want to talk about, I'd like to give listeners an overview of your climb. Essentially, this is where you've been and how you got here. So from New York, graduate of Lafayette College, where you're an English major. You were at the Morgan Hotel Group for a bit. Although you've been in the digital space for a while, you were at Velo Media, where you started in 2011, director of strategy and client relations, worked your way up to partner, and then Velo merged with another company. And that's where you guys formed Crowd Favorite, where you're now the COO, correct?
Well, so Crowd Favorite was part of an acquisition that we did in 2014. So Velo Media is sort of the parent group, which I'm a partner with Kareem, our CEO, and then we did a series of M&A in 2014. Crowd Favorite was one of those companies that we acquired and brought in underneath the Velo umbrella from a corporate structure standpoint. Publicly, we're just Crowd Favorite, though.
Got it. Okay. All right. Well, we've gone through another researcher. We're firing them. And then currently you're trapped in your apartment in Brooklyn due to the New York lockdown with bad Wi-Fi. Totally bad Wi-Fi. We didn't hear you there. You're like Wi-Fi completely locked.
Sorry, I'm also in a building of 58 floors, so I'm sharing not one internet connection, but it's about 3,000 people in this building, all at home working right now. So apologies there. No, I was saying, yes, we're sharing 700 square feet, me, my girlfriend, and my dog. And my dog is loving it more than the people are, for sure. So, yeah.
Right on, man. All right. So everybody has tools to support them in their climb. This is essentially what's in your backpack, right? And it gives everybody a clearer picture of who you are. So are you iPhone or Android?
I'm an iPhone. I'm an Apple person.
All right. So that answers the next question. So email, Office 365, Gmail, something else?
G Suite.
All right. Note taking, Evernote, Google Docs, OneNote, something else.
Text edit doc.
Really?
Yeah, I'm an old school person. As an English major, making outlines and keeping things organized in the text doc is second nature. So I don't need a lot of fancy tools and processes for that. A blank piece of paper is good enough. So
right on, man.
So interesting. We're noticing most people don't use note software. I mean,
not anymore. Yeah.
Most guests.
I used to use Evernote a bit, and I've tried a couple of the other ones. I don't know how to say this. They're a little sophomoric for me. I don't know how else. It's like it doesn't tailor to how I organize my thoughts or my priorities or whatever all the time. So you're sort of stuck on somebody else's sort of workflow and organizational style, I guess. And for me, I'm more stream of conscious because in my position, I'm a professional problem solver. That's what a COO really is, right? And so I got stuff coming at me from all over the place. So being able to kind of keep things usually just by date. I mean, if you look at my notes, it's like just a rolling history of day by day by day, which is actually really good for me because I can go back and say, oh yeah, I know on December 23rd, you did say you were going to work Christmas Eve, but you didn't.
Yeah,
just getting everybody knowing.
Exactly. Sure, yeah. That'll keep employee morale going.
That's right. Yeah, they love that for sure.
Definitely not a plug for Evernote, but I have over, I think it's 11,000 notes in my my Evernote account. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like my partner uses it all the time. So I think your tools are only as good as the users that use them, I think.
Amen. No. All right. And then most used app on your phone.
Oh, wow. Most used app on my phone. Good question. I don't know statistically the answer to that, but if I was to guess, oh my God, this is embarrassing. It'd probably be either Twitter, Slack, or the New York Times crossword app.
Yeah, really? That's okay. Yeah. All right. I wouldn't have, yeah, Twitter. I didn't know people were still using that.
Yeah, I'm an older guy, so I haven't jumped to TikTok or Snap or anything else like that yet. Sure, I'll have to get there at some point.
Right on. So let's jump right into it. I want to talk about the distributed agency. What's the evolution of that? Did you start there?
Yeah.
Are you from the future where you saw this exact situation happening and you came back to bless us?
Yeah, not the latter, although I definitely would like to take some credit for it. But no, I think so. We are born and bred out of a distributed environment. When I joined Velo Media in 2011 or late 2010, 2011, they were already distributed, but by necessity, I think, more than anything else. We have a Romanian company in Bucharest that's all employees, part of the umbrella or whatever. When I first got there, we had a couple of folks over in Romania already, and then a couple of folks sort of in and around the Los Angeles area. It was pretty much what I walked into about 10 years ago. The edict was sort of like, how do we build a professional services company and how do we grow this thing? And what had happened in 2005 to 2010, we see a lot of digital agencies are kind of born in this time period and there's a reason, right? Because a lot of companies decided, God, these developers are really annoying me and I don't really know how to control them. So instead of keeping everybody in-house, we're just going to do vendor. We're going to outsource all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And out of that, a bunch of us got together and we're like, oh, we can become our own bosses and we'll create an agency. And so we did, except at the time, the companies who had outsourced were very, wasn't a global economy quite the way it is now. It wasn't as flat, distributed companies. The gig economy wasn't really a thing in 2005 yet. It was just kind of starting to get some traction. And so we started there, and it's very interesting. In the M&A we did in 2014, we actually acquired 2 brick and mortar companies, and the integration of brick and mortar companies into a distributed culture was extremely challenging, but learned a lot of really interesting lessons there. Made us a lot stronger coming out the back end of it as a distributed company. Because really a distributed environment, what you're really trying to do is synthesize as closely as you possibly can what a brick and mortar environment does from a personal standpoint, from an accountability standpoint to one another. You're more inclined to really go to bat for your coworker if you're having beers every Friday afternoon than you are if you're 6,000 miles away and seeing each other once a month on a company call. And so really over the last 10 years, it's been about how do we synthesize that as best as we can, which is a combination of tools and culture and
the culture part. Like, how do you develop culture?
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, in a distributed environment, it's very Darwinian. It's adapt or die. I mean, if you're not going to be focused entirely on communication flow, and that's really where it all stems from a distributed standpoint. Again, are you able to sort of artificially create the idea that I can walk into somebody's office that's 5 feet away from me, or I can walk around the corner to somebody's cubicle, or we can go grab a drink together, or what have you. And we've tried to create a culture here using tools mostly, right? Whether it's Slack or what have you. And so one of the things that's vital, right, is everything's on video. Everything's on video, have to be on video. It's not like proprietary to us. There are a lot of people who talk about this, but it is essential that you be able to talk to somebody, because the biorhythms that you're able to pick up, even if you're not in the same room, but if you're able to see one another the way I see you guys right now, right? I see you nodding your head. Okay. That makes me feel good. I get a little endorphin rush. I must be saying something right. All those things that contribute to, which means that what's going to happen, I'm going to have more confidence. So I'm going to put myself out there again the next time and the next time and the next time. And the trick is, especially in a technology, in the digital space where you have introversion is a big part of the personality makeup of the digital space. How do you get people to kind of keep giving of themselves through a computer screen, where you don't have the elixir of a drink or a foosball table or whatever it is, to sort of break down those barriers, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Now, did you stumble on that organically, or did you go to, those seem like some pretty deep thoughts based on this?
Well, I think you have to look. I think it's I guess my scientific method is a little bit of both, right? I think you got to do a lot of R&D, but you can't just be book smart about it. You have to be a little bit street smart about it. I think you have to be open to failing, right? I think you've got to be able to, trial and error is a major component of it. Like I said, certainly trying to integrate 2 brick and mortar companies that were really built around this idea of we all come to an office and we're all in the same space together, and then suddenly the evil overlords come in and they're distributed, and now everybody wants to become we're trying to make everybody distributed. We learned a lot of valuable lessons, I think, coming out of that experience. And kind of in current times, there's a lot of opportunity when the pain starts, right? No pain, no gain. That's usually where people make their biggest leaps forward in terms of these things operationally.
So what were you acquiring with those 2 companies that intrigued you?
Yeah, great question. So for us, it was engineering depth and design UX, right? So what we were mostly a web development company back then. And what we brought to the table was a really strong infrastructure, tiered PM, AM, execs, all that stuff. So we could really match up with clients. That was really what we brought to the table. What we needed was engineering depth, right? So we were looking for engineering, and Crowd Favorite was the original WordPress agency. We were doing a lot of WordPress work at the time. And Alex King, who was the owner, was like the 3rd contributor to WordPress, and was well known in the space, had a great company, and he had approached us about selling or moving on from Crowd Favorite. And so that was part of it. And then the other part of it was we realized we were leaving a lot of dollars on the table because we couldn't provide a counterbalance of the engineering with design and UX up front. And what that was doing was, not only was it taking dollars off the table where we were just getting the engineering portion of projects, but sometimes it would preclude us from winning the engineering portion, right? Because somebody else would come in with the design UX chops and the development chops up front. And, client wants one throat to choke. They only want to go to one person as much as possible. So we recognized that pretty early, and we also realized instead of doing it organically through hiring, we decided to do it through M&A.
Got it. And it sounds like it worked out. So based on acquiring two companies, you have to have a conversation with them saying, hey, by the way, we all work from everywhere but this one central place.
Yeah. So that was an interesting, that was a phased rollout for us. When we first started, we actually had when I first started, I think we had about 7 or 8 offices in and around the country, and then a couple internationally, even at the time. And we've, over the course of time, gotten rid of all of them except for the office in Bucharest. Why did we do that? Part of it was cost, right?
How much of a savings are we talking about?
Well, it's interesting. Everybody asks me that question because, and it could be savings, but I try to be a little bit more magnanimous about the money and just reroute the resources into different places. So for example, if you're going to save, this is not real. Hypothetically, you're paying $10,000 a month for rent or whatever it is, right? Across however many offices, $120,000 a year on your facility expenses or just your rental expense. It's not like we go ahead and we go, okay, we're going to put that $120,000 in the bank now that we don't have it. We reinvest it. Now, do we reinvest all of it? No, obviously some of it is a cost savings measure, sure. But the majority of it is reinvested in people for us, whatever that means. It could mean comp, right? But it also really means getting people together, trying to get our people over to Europe as much as possible, the Europeans to America as much as possible, the Americans spread out through the country as much as possible, getting people together at conferences like Owner Summit or BD Camp or other things in the Bureau. Anything we can do where, as much as we are distributed, we want to take that budget, we want to reallocate it towards about as much in-person time as we can get between the teams.
Okay. So it's not necessarily a cost savings, right? It's like
reallocation.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So
I don't think the budget side of the P&L changes that much. We just decided to take that line item and reallocate probably 80% of that budget towards other expenses. And then maybe about 20% of it we probably are saving right now. That's true.
Okay. How many employees do you have?
We're 30.
Okay.
It's hard. I'm a terrible person.
No.
The same thing happens to me. They're 30. Yeah. I think it's about 30 people. Yeah.
All right. So essentially traveling people to Europe, traveling people back. I mean, so those costs, and then that's essentially.
Well, we were, and I don't know if we're going to do that for a while now, but yeah.
Yeah, good call. So what about the processes necessary to keep everybody on the same page?
Sure. So I think one thing we realized coming out of the M&A stuff 6 years ago was obviously having formalized documented process is enormous. Like people need to be able to go to a singular point, a repository of information, and everybody needs to know where to go and what they're going to find there when they get there, right? So that they're not going, oh, I need this thing. I'm going to search like 10 different places. No, if I need this thing, I know that I go to this one place to get that piece of information. That's very important. We created an intranet here that houses a lot of this information for folks, and we have a pretty rigorous onboarding for new hires as well that really takes them through where they can find all of this material. One of the pieces of material that they can find is a process document on the tools we have and how they're used. So email is used for these specific things. Slack is used for these specific things. Calendar, which I think is a major tool that people don't talk enough about. Everybody wants to talk about the video and the texting and how do I talk to you? Right. But what's more important a lot of the time is saving the time on wondering what somebody's up to. You can just look at their calendar if they're accurately keeping their calendar up to date, or retroactively, you can also go back historically and go, oh, this is what everybody's been working on. If they're sort of keeping that stuff up to date. So, whatever tools or whatever sort of suite of tools that you're putting together to sort of, again, synthesize that brick and mortar experience for your folks, I think it's just really important that it's formally documented somewhere. And then that documentation is reinforced in the onboarding process. For us, when you come in as a new hire, you get assigned sort of a big brother, big sister type, somebody who's been here for a while that can kind of make sure that they mentor you through all that stuff so that by the time you're 2 weeks or 3 weeks of onboarding is up, you're ready to just run right in and you're ready to join that workflow for us pretty seamlessly.
I love that. I also love what you said about the calendar because I'm a big believer in that. Like everything is on my calendar. Like it's ridiculous. Like in my calendar is shared with my wife as well. So she knows like, all right, this is what he's doing right then. This is what he's working on. He's golfing on Sunday. Like there's almost nothing that's not calendared.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even now, right? I mean, we're co-work. So my girlfriend, I usually work from home when I'm not on the road. So for me, work-wise, this is not really that different. But
Mhm.
she's home from work for the next few months, and obviously getting on the same page in terms of our calendars, even if we're in the next room from each other, is really important because you don't want, she doesn't want to walk out in the middle of this podcast, and I don't want to walk in there during one of her phone calls, right? So because everybody's on video,
Right.
as it should be.
Yeah, I've heard some horror stories already from some people of some
Oh
things.
yeah, kids and pets and all kinds of stuff going on in the background. You just got to roll with it, man. It is what it is.
Sure. So I want to. I'm intrigued based on the big brother big sister type of scenario. That's
Mhm.
something new. So I'm sure that's like work related, right? So you're hiring a developer. You're probably going to have another developer that's going to train that person, right? Or onboard them.
Yes and no. Sometimes we do it like that. I am trying to encourage from an onboarding perspective. It really shouldn't matter what your job or your role or your responsibilities are at Crowd Favorite. If you're, and I'm sorry for the terrible cheesy push here, but if you're a favoriteer, no matter what you are,
You guys
no
have
matter,
hats too?
we're working on the swag right now. We do have a pretty big entertainment client who might have a problem with us using that name, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. No ears. I don't think we can put any ears on the
Okay, that's
swag.
where I was going.
But yeah, no, I think it's. Sorry, what was the? I lost my train of thought there. What was the question?
So is the onboarding between the big brother?
Oh,
and
the big brother and big
sister?
sister. Is it always discipline to discipline? No, not always. Not always. In fact, I'd like to, even as we keep evolving it, I would like to actually push it not to be someone from the same discipline, because too often, especially in a distributed environment, again, disciplines can become very siloed, right? The developers only talk to the developers, the designers only talk to the designers. I mean, look, we got a Slack channel, deep design, there's a Slack channel, deep tech, right? And so already in the way we talk to each other in some of the tools we use, there's sort of an organic siloing that goes on. And so what do we do to counteract that is we pump out a lot of stuff that is, broad ranging or more public facing. We really try to push as many public messages. One of the things I always look at in Slack when I get the statistics is how many private messages versus public messages, right? Yes, there's a time and a place for a private message, but the honest to God truth is 80% of what you're talking about, if you're being productive at work, should be able to be talked about in a public Slack channel so that other people can see it. And I think that's really important to have that kind of transparency into the conversations that are going on and what people are spending their time with. Is really good. There's a really cool tool out there, if I can talk about it really quick, that we don't use. I've been looking at it. It's
kind
called,
of an odd plug.
I'm looking at it. I want to use it. We just haven't pulled the plug yet. I think it's called Sococo, SOCOCO, something like that.
Yeah.
Kind of like a virtual office type setup. Very cool. Kind of gives you an idea of when are people in their office and when aren't they. And if you can't get into if my green light is on in Slack, my door is open. If my green light is on in Slack with the Z through it, my door is closed, but I'm there, come knock, whatever. I mean, there are ways to get through it, but everybody and their brother is trying to invent another tool that simplifies the remote working experience. And certainly in these times, I don't think it's going to go anywhere anytime soon.
So would that be replacing what you currently have in Slack, or is that something?
No, I don't think. I don't think so. That's where I'm going back and forth on it. Is like how do I say this? Like how
do you adopt
how grade schooly do I have to be with everybody? Like to get everybody to understand when people are available or they're not available. I would rather push an environment and a culture of read the documentation, because I like readers. People who read are usually they wind up being better employees usually than those that don't.
No, I would agree with that. And I actually, and so a couple things that you said that intrigued me. So you have this onboarding process, some transparency on our end. Our culture is when we bring on somebody, we have where they're essentially in a work environment. I think that's something that we could actually do better at. So I love that idea. That's actually a big takeaway for me here. Like, okay, this is somebody that you're responsible for.
Yeah.
And I guess getting into their performance, have you ever heard complaints based on somebody, saying, oh, so-and-so is dragging me down. I'm helping them out all the time?
No.
Okay.
No, because I think the people who you're talking about from the big brother, big sister perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, because I think they understand what the value is of getting these people. Now, I have had people come back to me and say, I don't think this hire was a good hire.
Right.
Sure.
But again, they're not, the big brother, big sister isn't doing the hiring and firing. All of our directors have total control over hiring and firing here. I interview people, but my philosophy is I can't expect the directors to produce the results I'm asking them to produce if I'm choosing the team for them. They've got to choose that team for themselves. They know the ingredients they need, to make the cake or whatever it is that I'm asking them to make, and they're best suited for that. So I stay out of the hiring and firing, the mechanism of it. And I have an influence on it, but I'm not in charge of making that decision. I think for the big brothers, big sisters, they recognize the value of it. The faster I can get somebody else to join us on this project, the better off it is for me. And I can go from, my stress level comes down and we can do more work and interesting work, and they see the bigger picture. And a lot of that is due to the transparency that we have in terms of our financial and operations metrics that are constantly reinforced to the team. One thing I'm working on really hard in 2020 is connecting everybody's day-to-day job to the overall business success of the company, right? Sometimes you can feel very far removed from, I created a button today on a website. How does that really affect whether Crowd Favorite is going to be successful or not? Well, yes, there is a connection there. You can connect the dots, and getting the production staff to understand the ops and finance side and getting the ops and finance side to understand the production side is really, really important, especially in a distributed company, I think.
So it's funny you mentioned that, because we have that. Every job is essentially connected to profitability. But because
Sure.
of that, that's why it was harder to have the new hire come on and have somebody train them, because we didn't have the mechanism in place for that training piece of it. So in my opinion, the person didn't get the attention that they needed, and we ended up, essentially just graduating.
Because the mentor decided to usurp the training for their own utilization.
Well, yeah, it was just like, this isn't a money-making thing based on where my goals are. So why would I focus on this? Which,
but it is in the long run, it is a money-making.
So
right.
That's the lesson I would preach all the time. But people are, in today's day and age, people are so focused on short-term goals, it's hard for them to sacrifice short-term for long-term. And that's, I tried to preach that all the time.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. It's a great point. I think operationally, maybe look at the onboarding process and say, how much time a week should this really take? If I'm doing this for 3 weeks with a new person, again, I'm not having somebody be a big brother like they're holding their hand through the entire day. It's a resource that they can use and go talk to at any point where they get stuck or something isn't where we told them it would be, or they have a question or whatever. And they can always come to ops. They can always come to a director. But I also want them to be able to. Sometimes people don't want to ask questions to power. It makes them feel insecure, right?
Sure.
Oh, I just got hired and I don't know anything, and I'm going to let all my bosses know I don't know anything is a scary thing, right? So being able to talk to a peer about it is really important. For us, weekly billable expectation here is 80%, right? 32 out of 40. But if you're going to do an onboarding thing with somebody, it's got to be part of your 8 hours or whatever that is, and you've got to be able to manage that time.
So we've even used, I've laid out like spreadsheets that show hiring and taking time training, in the long run adds to your bonus metrics, and it's still hard to get that lesson out. But
well, are they being dinged on the? It's you don't have hourly employees, so they're on salary. So does it really make a difference if they work 29 billable hours instead of 30 billable hours in a week where they're training somebody? To them, to their salary, it doesn't, right? Because they're not hourly employees; they're fully salaried, right?
But they can accomplish more, which means their team's more profitable, which means their percentage goes up.
But they can accomplish. So that's what I don't understand. Like, you guys work off a 40-hour week.
Yeah.
And your billable expectation of a billable employee is what?
I think it's 35, isn't it?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
35. So yours is pretty high. So that's part of the issue there. So they've basically got 5 hours, 1 hour a day. So if they take a half-hour lunch, they've got 2.5 hours to do anything that's non-billable all week long, which realistically probably is not really true. They're probably having to work more than 40 hours a week to do that.
So not billable, so markable. Like we expect 7 hours of time marked, but out of those 7 hours, not all of those 7 hours have to be billable to client work. I just want to see if they're in a team meeting. They have to mark time for a team meeting.
No, totally get that. But again, I'm saying so for us, basically we're saying if you're a billable employee here, and chances are if you're a mentor of somebody onboarding, you're probably going to be a billable employee. you've got 8 hours of non-billable time in your week, right? And I don't really push people hard on the 40-hour work week, but you need a baseline of metrics, right? So, you have 40 hours, you got 8 hours. I don't like giving people a half-hour lunch, so I just assume everybody takes an hour lunch because I always hated taking a half-hour lunch when I was an employee. So, that you take those 5 hours off, you've got 3 hours left. Typically for us, Friday afternoons are designated as non-client facing time because I tend to find that production-wise, Friday afternoons are not a great time for people to be doing client work. It is a great time to do R&D. It is a great time to work on that pet project. It is a great time to mentor. And so trying to time box for the folks. Some of it, honestly, is people aren't very good at managing their time. They're not good at organization, right? And so they're already like, oh my God, I just got the flow of 35 out of 40 hours a week. And now I have to mentor this person. I have no idea how to do that. So maybe instead of focusing on dollars, I would say, hey, here's a way that we can organize your time template, a time boxing scenario that actually allows you to do both. It allows you to bring up somebody new on staff, which has great long-term, achieves great long-term goals for us, long-term goals for us. And you stay as productive as you have been, which achieves short-term goals for you and us as well, right?
Let me ask you this. Do you have a bonus compensation plan for your senior members? Because the breakdown is how their bonus is affected. And
right. So you're talking about senior billable people.
Yes.
Okay. So we do not have a bonus plan that's formally documented. I was ready to roll out profit sharing plan this year. And I don't think that's going to be, we're going to put that a little bit on the back burner. I'll probably roll it out for 2021, regardless of where we're at, because I wanted to get it out very quick because we had a very good year in 2019 and everything was kind of rolling along, and obviously we are where we are now, and we're sort of dealing with, things coming at us in real time, and we're reacting as best as we can to that. So like some of the longer term stuff has sort of been pushed down. I'll probably get back to it over the summer at some point once things stabilize or normalize or whatever they're going to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the long run, I would like to put a profit sharing plan in place. And I think that I don't like bonus programs personally, because they're so subjective and they can be very volatile, and then people get used to them. It's like, oh, last year I got a $2,000 bonus, and I feel like I did the same job I did last year that I did this year. So don't I get another $2,000 bonus? And you're like, no.
So our bonus plan is a profit sharing.
Yeah,
plan.
it's totally
okay. So profit sharing, I like. Okay, so profit sharing is great. You guys do quarterly?
Quarterly. Yep.
Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking too, as well. And I think, well, if you're doing that, then I think it should be pretty linear for people to be able to get to the part where it's better for them.
Yeah, so did we.
We thought so too.
What's the pushback?
Is that
it's just about the short term?
Yeah, their immediate paycheck, which through a chain of events means they're not getting as much done, so they're not billing as much. And so the only people that get bonuses in our structures are team leaders. So there's multiple people underneath them, but they are expected to code and do things for clients as well, billable work. Right. And so, it's the struggle of train or just do it yourself. And I try to preach, train can make you more scalable long-term and put more money in your pocket in the long run. No doubt. But short-term, look, we understand our society. The American society is short-term today always wins long-term. I mean, we see it over and over again, and it takes a rare individual to honestly sacrifice short-term for long-term. So
kind of why we're in the crisis we're in. I mean, to be
no doubt. Right. But if you look at that's true. But if you can point to so many success stories where they didn't choose the short term. And I talk about this with my team a lot. It's operating the way you have to versus the way you should.
Sure.
Right.
And that's a small percentage of people.
It's a small percent. Right. But it's a small percentage of companies too. Right. And so this is where I take the personal part out and I go to the entity. It is the entity's value that we play chess, not checkers around here. That's our culture. Our culture is forward thinking. It is long-term thinking. And I talk about this a lot. It's a utilitarian approach. Like, as leaders, your job is to do the best overall good for as many of the people as you can. Doesn't mean that everybody's going to get everything they want. Right. Doesn't mean that you're never going to fire somebody. Doesn't mean bad things aren't going to happen. The choices you make they have to be long-term choices. They must be. Sure. And what I kind of am missing, and I'm sorry if I'm misunderstanding, I don't understand why they feel like their short-term pay would be affected, like to the point where like they're blowing profitability and they're going to get fired, or like client or suddenly the cash flow is going to be to a point where they don't get paid.
Well, you know, in our calculations, I have a spreadsheet for each team. The cost of the team is a factor on the balance sheet. So bringing on.
I see. So I see.
So bringing on an expense it directly impacts the number. But I will say,
they've got to trust the onboarding process that the expense is going to be greatly outweighed by the revenue that full-time employee.
And I've shown the numbers. I can show the numbers that in 2 quarters, the bonus is, you know, twice as large as it was 3 quarters ago, because you have more people, so you can do more output, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But that's what it is. Right. It's 2 quarters away, and that's 10 years away. It's right. You know, you're going to quit smoking in 2 quarters, right? It's just like, oh yeah, you know, that's never going to come.
Yeah. So I'll tell you one thing that really worked out with how we've set up our quarterly profit sharing is that it's almost self-regulating. So we obviously just had a pretty tough quarter at the end of quarter 1. And because a lot of our compensation of a lot of our leaders and managers are tied to profit sharing, well, all their compensation kind of starts sliding down. And, you know, so it's almost like it's self-regulating. If we're doing really good, we're paying out huge bonuses. If we're kind of running into hard times, then the business isn't paying out, you know, huge sums. So, you know, it's really worked well to really just kind of
connect.
Yeah. It really, we're on like our 3rd or 4th year of it. And so our leaders get the bonus plan, and then all of our employees get a quarterly raise, which has worked great too, because it gives me an opportunity every 3 months to talk to each employee and then give them a small raise. And
how many people are you guys?
What's that?
How many folks?
About 24 employees.
Okay.
And so it's usually a 1% raise every quarter, which is only 4% for the year. But if you compound that, it's really like 4.8.
Right. And it covers the cost of living increase year over year, plus a little bit extra. So that's nice. Yeah.
And that's the average. We usually give a 2 or a 3% for someone that just did a superstar performance for the quarter.
Right.
So,
yeah, same. I'm entertaining it as much for the regular employees as I am for my directors. So my directors are starting to get to that salary top end of the salary range that I'm comfortable spending, right? And so I'm trying to figure out how do I get them more money, but I have to base it on performance. And again, you know, to tell sales, like, you know, we don't do commission here. So my director of sales, you know, your profit sharing is you know, you've got to make sure
you don't do commission for your sales.
No.
Wow.
No, sir.
Interesting. Does your salesperson, did they come from a commission-based job?
No.
Okay.
In fact, they're not. In fact, they don't even come from a sales background.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So I'd say that'd be a very hard thing to swallow. Not saying it can't be persuaded, but wow. That's
hey, I don't mind. I don't mind if somebody wants to make commission. I'll drop their salary and they can prove it to me.
Yeah,
if they want to. I have no problem with performance-based paying people based on performance at all. It's just that we haven't done that here. Just hasn't been. I wanted to. With digital, it's tricky because you can't put a traditional, I don't want to say you can't. I didn't want to put a traditional salesperson in the role in a digital company because I was going to wind up spending a ton of money on cost of sale, having my production team fight with the salespeople about what can and can't be done, on what timelines and all the rest of it. Because you've got 2 different sets of priorities when you've got a commission-based salesperson and a regular production team, right? This person just wants to close, and I think there's a lot of value. We talk about this all the time, hunting and farming, right? The salespeople, the traditional salespeople are hunters, they're killers. Don't care if they get rejected 99 times, it's all about that one kill wherever they find it.
Well, I'd break that up into 2, not to challenge on it, but there's the prospector, right? And then there's the closer, right? The prospector definitely is that hunter, so they're going to essentially get that stuff. But the closer is that salesperson. Both of those people should be incentivized based on it. So, I mean,
that's true. I mean, and
it's a different mindset.
If you want to divide it into 2 different roles, it depends on where you are in the sales process, where it's colder and where it's getting warmer, right?
Right.
And so, you know, the hunting is more on the colder side, and the farming is sort of more on as it gets warmer and warmer, right? The nurturing,
exactly.
All that stuff. But yeah, we haven't done that because I wanted to avoid the age-old tension between production and sales. And I actually brought the person who's our director of sales in from, he was the director of project management. And I did that for a very specific reason, because that role understands both the financial responsibilities of projects and they understand the operational responsibilities of projects as well. And so that's worked out pretty well for us so far.
Yeah, I've seen some project managers make great salespeople. And to give you a quick little anecdote based on commission, I know a guy, this was a few years ago, where he was making great commissions, right? He was a fantastic sales guy, between $600,000 to $700,000 a year with a really gnarly salary. It was like $200,000, and then his commission was on top of that. Well, his company said, well, would you be willing to take less of a commission for less of a salary? He said, yeah, I would. So they inflated his commission to a dramatic amount, but he had to hit some really serious goals. So let's say that they drop his salary down to like $60,000 a year. His commission that year, what was paid out on top of his like $60,000, was $2.4 million.
Yeah, so he dropped it by a quarter or 3/4, and then he raised it by 3/4 on the commission side.
Yeah, it was just super dramatic based on the results that he was able to get as well, right? So it's like 3 or 4 times performance. So I think that's something too to look at as we begin to.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's personality based, right? I think when you're going through the hiring process, you're really deciding, do you want the hunter or do you want the farmer? And it really depends on, your lead gen, your marketing, your pipeline, all that stuff, right? Your culture.
Also, during a time like this where we have like this, worldwide, catastrophe, if you're on a compensation plan that's all commission based, and now here comes this act of God that it's not the sales guy's fault. Now you're just baking in this issue that you have to sit down and go, all right, I understand commissions aren't coming in. Let's change your base. Like, I'm very believer, if you're going to go commission or you're high commission, then you got to deal with the bad times too. But because Absolutely. I understand human nature, they won't deal with the bad times. They'll just leave.
They'll just leave. And then, and I think also client services, unlike product, services organically has ebb and flow to it. You're gonna have peaks and valleys, and right. I think if you're selling services on a commission basis, I think you have to be very cognizant that you can't expect loyalty from the salesperson if the lead gen machine starts to falter, because they're just going to say, I can't close what I don't have to close. Right?
Sure.
It's just like Glenn Ross, right? I don't have the leads. I need the leads, right?
That's why I locked my sales guy in with percentage ownership, so that I knew that he couldn't go anywhere.
There you go. That's smart.
Yeah, the same way I locked my ops guy in. Yeah,
right. Also smart. Pay for the accountants, pay for the lawyers, pay for the ops people.
So, want to jump back to it. You have all these people that are responsible for reading these processes. Are they also responsible for writing them themselves, or does that go on a specific person?
No, I would say the departmental documentation is written by directors mostly, usually with oversight from exec and ops. Obviously, we want to write HR compliant stuff, right? So all that stuff we have to be careful about that. So operations covers all that stuff, but processes and formalized, QA process or BDPM handoff process, or all those are on the directors. I joke with everybody, my role is to be like those, when you were a kid and went to the bowling alley, I'm like the things in the gutters.
Oh yeah. Down
the whole lane to go back and forth down the thing, but my job is to keep you out of the gutter. That's pretty much it. So.
Got it. Yeah, I killed it. My score was amazing with those.
There you go. Yeah, no, I mean, delegation is really important. To your point about teaching people to fish versus fishing for them. I think all of us naturally sort of default to well, I know how to do this and I can do it faster and I can do it better. It's the last part that most people actually get wrong. It's not that you actually do it better. You just do it your way. And I think a lot of times executives or whoever need to step back and say the process is not as important as the result. You have to get the result.
Yeah, there's a lot of, things about personalities. Like I come from a development background. I was a developer myself. I've worked with a ton of developers, and, a lot of them confuse style with correct. They'll say, no, that's not right. Well, no, it's right. It's just not your style.
Right.
And so you have to break these old IT habits to get so that's where most of these issues come from is, developers trying to mentor another developer. It's like, it's almost like the military. You got to break them down and build them back up to be the developer you want. And if they're not, then it's just frustration. So
yeah, I mean, I don't want somebody to come in and be like, oh, okay, I'm a Drupal developer, and I've got a Drupal developer mentor, and the Drupal developer mentor, their job is to teach them how to become a Drupal developer. No, this person
Right.
should already have the technical chops to be a Drupal developer. But
Right.
crowd favorite, like every company, is idiosyncratic, right? We all have our picadillos or whatever they're called, right? And so, like, the mentor's job is to sort of say, 80% of this already. You were hired having
Right.
80% of the capacity to work at crowd favorite.
Mm-hmm.
My job is to kind of get you through that last 20% to make sure that when we roll you in 2 to 3 weeks, that last 20% is filled
favorite
in.
tier.
Exactly, and get him a hat with the ears.
So, all right, let's say with taking the model that you had with the distributed, with the two brick and mortar companies distributed, you guys were always distributed. Based on you looking outside in, let's say like an agency, like ours, how would you recommend to be more remote? And granted, this virus is helping us dip our toe into that, crystal clear water that you see, so clearly through. So how would you recommend to other agencies that to do this?
To go more remote?
Yeah, to go more distributed. Like, should we just
I
get
think
rid of our offices today? You know what I'm saying? Like, how would you stage it based on how you stage
I
it
see what you're saying.
brick and mortar?
Yeah. I think there's a phase. Look, I mean, I don't come to any conversation saying there is only one way to do something. I think that there is a lot of value in still having an office. I think there's a lot of value for some companies in terms of being a brick and mortar agency or company. I think it depends on what the goals are of the company, though, because I think the world is changing to a point where if you are located, I know you guys are in Jacksonville.
We have two offices, Jacksonville and St. Petersburg, Florida.
Okay.
Both, yeah.
If you're in a city, right, versus a suburban or a rural area, the cost of having a brick and mortar environment obviously is a lot higher, but not just on a dollar standpoint, right? If you're going to have an office in Tampa Bay and you're going to have an office in St. Pete and you're going to have an office in Jacksonville, then your talent pool has to be from those areas.
Yep.
Right. I think one of the biggest pros for distributed companies, and everybody wants to talk about the dollars, I actually think it's the talent pool. I think it's the ability to broaden yourself up, and this is big for us and big for me personally, is diversity, right? I think, and I don't mean that necessarily from I want to get myself into trouble here, but from like a window dressing standpoint about diversity, I mean experiential diversity. I don't care about You're
not talking about shapes and colors.
That's about the superficial stuff. I'm talking about what your experience is. And by definition, if you have different experiences, you'll get all the other stuff with it. But because I would like crowd favorite to solve problems. If everybody kind of comes from the same thing, you're just solving problems the same way kind of all the time.
Homogenization
right?
is always a killer.
And geography plays a major role in this, right? Culture, language, all those things, the food. I mean, all of it. There are Floridians and there are New Yorkers. There are differences. I mean, everybody knows.
A lot of New Yorkers
right?
in Florida.
I was gonna say we have.
There are, but not where you guys are. There's Californians and there's Wisconsinites, right? And they're not the same at all. And so how much can you really? How big do you want to get? What kind of problems are you trying to solve? What kind of clients do you have and what kind of problems are they trying to solve? I think the more global challenges your customers have, I think the more global a response your team needs to be able to provide them. And I think that's one of the major advantages is being able to pull from a diverse set of talent that's out there. And I don't mean what's in their fingers. I mean what's in here, because we talk about this at Crowd Favorite all the time. I don't hire developers. I don't hire people's hands. I hire people's brains. At the end of the day, the difference between my company and your company is not that I build websites and you build websites, because everybody builds websites. The difference is I've got my particular people with their particular brains looking at particular problems in a particular way and solving them in that way. And you have the same with your team. And that's the true differentiation in a very saturated space, which is web development, essentially. It is extremely saturated. Take platforms out of it, take all of it, just building websites for clients. I mean, it's saturated. So where's the difference come from? It has to come from people, not from deliverables. It's very hard to differentiate your deliverables at the end of the day, especially to clients who look at technology like a light switch. All they want to do is hit the button and it works. They don't care about the wiring. They don't care where you went to electrical school. They don't care how you got it to come up from the ground and all. They just want to hit the switch. What they do care about is the design of the switch, the color of the switch, what the switch looks like, right? All that stuff. But when they actually hit the button, they just want it to work. So how do you continue to communicate that differentiation to your clients? I think it makes it a lot easier if you're pulling from a much more differentiated pool of employees.
Got
Now,
it.
do you ever get into more than just their website? Do you like?
Yeah, we focus a lot on. We're really focusing in the last 2 years. We've really made a pretty big. I don't want a pivot. That would probably be the best word towards digital strategy and consulting, because I think that's really where the future of the agency world is going. Because I think I started this conversation off by saying back in 2005, everybody got rid of all their in-house stuff. Well, in 2020, everybody's bringing the in-house stuff back. There is a roll-up. There is a roll-up going on out there of agencies left, right, and central. It's coming from either hosting companies, it's coming from big-time advertising agencies, it's coming from bigger digital agencies that are scooping up smaller digital agencies, or it's coming from private equity, right? And you're seeing it everywhere. It's happening all over the place. And a lot of it is about bringing the production services back inside where they can have control, because they're going to sit there and go, so Crowd Favorite charges $195 an hour for development work, whatever. That's a $400,000 a year employee.
Right.
I can get a developer for $150,000, but I don't know what the hell to tell them to do.
Right.
So I still need somebody who can tell my developer what to do, who can architect and transition and transform an idea, a strategy into a digital program for their in-house team to do. And I think that's really where we're moving much, much stronger on the digital strategy side, because I don't know if in the long run, I think production is going to be a complementary revenue stream for a lot of us. I think it's going to be mostly about this and less about this.
I think with that, the same thing can be said when you outsource work to an overseas shop is if you don't have the talent in your organization to leverage that team to the best, you're going to get junked back. I mean,
no doubt.
A lot of people just expect, hey, some guy emailed me, they've got this great cheap team, I'm getting development at $20 an hour. Here's a spec sheet, and then, deliver me something. And that's when the expectations are always mismatched.
But the only way to sell that is based on that person having a poor experience. Otherwise, you're continually running into just a cognitive bias, right? They think that they're going to be the exception, that they already have whatever tools necessary to ship the work overseas. And unless they failed and had that, I've never seen somebody just accept that idea otherwise.
Accept what idea? That the work can be done,
that they truly need that they truly need the strategy without seeing the pains of it failing previously with technology. Because it's like the light switch. They have no idea what's involved with that light switch going on, and until they get shocked, there's literally no basis to come from unless they've had the failures.
Right, and I think that's where the onus is on us in being subject matter experts, where in a very clear way you have to be able to get them to associate their situation, their challenge, their project with something else you've done, and make sure that they can come along on the experience you've had. So if we go to somebody and we say, look, you've got this great idea, we really want to do this, but it needs we need to really flesh this thing out. There's no specs, there's no timeline, we really need to get into it. They say, okay, well, I don't, how much is that going to cost? Because I only have, X amount of budget. And our argument typically is, look, spend 10 to 20% up front, right? And you're going to save 30 to 40% on the back. Mm-hmm. And we don't compete on price. That's one of the things I will tell clients. We're very candid, right? We are what we are, and we're comfortable with what we are. And we don't pretend to be the cheapest, and we don't pretend to be the most expensive. What we do know is that we're good at what we do. And what we do know is that if you just are interested in getting the lowest bid, then our experience with you is you get what you pay for, you're going to pay less money, it's going to take a lot longer, and it's not going to be as good as you want it to be. But that's your choice, right? And we're very candid about that. Obviously, we got to back it up, which I think, we've been doing this for 13 years, so I guess we're doing something right? But at the end of the day, you've got to be able to not just tell that story, but make them believe it, that you share the experience, that you do know more than they do, that it is in their best interest to spend the money up front now, so they don't spend more later. And what I always tell them is we have a process for leads that we lose with clients just like you, right? We're in towards the end, we're into the price, we're into how we're going to set this up. It's probably us and another company, whatever you choose. You choose somebody else. We're going to hit you up in 90 days. And in 90 days, I'm going to ask you how it's going or whatever it is that you're going to launch, usually about 45 days
We
before
do the
I launch.
exact same thing.
And hit them up. How's it going? And I'm going to, and we're going to have this conversation, and you and I are going to have this exact conversation in 45 days. And I literally will tell them what the conversation is, right? That does one of two things. If they don't choose us, I get to say, I told you so in 45 days, because most of the time we wind up having that exact conversation, right? Or two, they just believe me and they go with us because we're just that convincing, right? We believe that strongly because we're not afraid to say, we do know more than you, right? You don't know how much this costs. You don't. I said to somebody the other day, we're at home, so I'm doing like 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzles. I haven't done these since I was a kid. And I said, clients come to the table, and at best, all they have is the edge pieces of that puzzle, which are maybe about 200 of the 1,000 pieces. And then a client, after having only 20% of the puzzle built, they're also going to tell you how much the rest of it's going to cost, how much it should cost. What gives the client any kind of leverage or expertise to be able to tell us that, right? And so the idea is, how do you share that experience with them and say, you don't know enough, we don't know enough, and believe me, we've been doing this a really long time, so we know what we're doing here. If we don't know enough, you can't possibly know enough to know today that this costs $100,000 or $500,000. Spend $50,000. Here's some things that we've done for $50,000 with other companies like you, and here are the results of those things. Forget the $250,000. Spend $50,000. If you want to spend more with us afterwards, great. We'll give you a document, and you can take it anywhere you want to go. You don't have to choose us, right? What I do there is, if you don't choose us, there's a 25% fee, right? That comes with it, because I'm not going to build a roadmap for my competitors just so that they can take all my money.
Sounds like you learned it the hard way.
Sure. We did like an ancestry.com type website probably like 6-7 years ago with a company out of Vegas. Exactly, this happened exactly, and I learned my lesson. I was like, we did all the work. It was great. They paid us. It was great. We were like, oh, digital strategy, you're making money for strategy. This is awesome. Consulting, because consulting is the greatest thing in the world. It's like being a meteorologist. You don't have to be right all the time. You just have to be right when it matters. I think that's the most important thing, right?
I love that.
And so we were really excited. And then, of course, they were like, oh, you're too expensive to build it, so we're going to go with some offshore thing and send it to them. And we were like, oh, well, we put a lot of effort thinking that we were going to be building this thing, and then we didn't get it. So I don't want to make it punitive, but I also want to be compensated for the time if they choose to go somewhere else.
Smart. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. I know we're coming
guys,
up.
I could talk about this all day.
I know, dude. I was literally thinking, like, I want to have you on as another guest, man. I was like, based on other topics, because I know you know we all got some schedules here that we have to get.
Yeah, whatever you guys are happy to do it. This has been great.
Awesome, man. No, you've been a pleasure, man. Jason, thank you so much, buddy. All right, I want to give you some time here. So if you, this is your space. If you want to go ahead and pedal, push, promote anything, this is your time to do it right now.
Oh, wow. Well, I guess from the crowd favorite family to everybody out there, the most important thing is stay safe and stay healthy right now. I think one of the things that we're trying to push as much as possible is not selling you web development, because right now I think people are just got to figure out from a client side about what they want to do with their digital marketing going forward. I think it's really important to be important time to do digital marketing, but we're sort of stepping back there. Where we are really helping clients, and we're doing this really pro bono, is the distributed remote workforce, right? This is where we've been doing this for so long. And we just got such a repository of information. And obviously I've got people who have kids at home right now. So we're all kind of dealing with the same thing. I wrote a post recently on crowdfavorite.com about leadership in crisis, where I basically talk about, we're all kind of starting from the same position, whether you're the COO of Facebook or you're the COO of Crowd Favorite or whatever you are. I mean, we're all kind of looking into the same abyss with all the same limited knowledge. So the best we can do is just share our experiences and hope that helps people as much as possible.
Do you have any, since you existed prior to the 2008 financial, do you see any parallels?
I don't see a lot of parallels to 2008 as much as I think the parallels are a little closer to 9/11. And I wrote a little bit, I touched about it just a little bit in that article. What I do think is entirely different from each of those things, right, is that, and you can argue this is a man-made thing, but I'm not going to get into the origins of where this came from. But this is not something of our own sort of political or financial doing.
Right.
This is something completely different. And as I wrote in the
Active
article, I said, it's force. We're living in a force majeure world. That's right.
Yeah.
And as I said in the article, I said, tell me if this feels like H1N1 or Ebola or SARS to you, because it doesn't. This is not the same. We didn't shutter everything. The world didn't stop, right? I mean, I live in Brooklyn, New York. It's 5 o'clock on a Wednesday and I'm looking outside on Flatbush Avenue and there are no cars, there's no people. It's weird, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's really
eerie.
strange times, but we're all sharing the weirdness together. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. And what I will end with this, since this is an operational thing, I think it's an extraordinary opportunity for companies, if they're going to take a break from sort of output, to do a lot of internal auditing and taking stock of their systems, the weaknesses and vulnerabilities of their systems and their companies. And I say that on a positive note. I'm not trying to degrade. We all have weaknesses and we all have vulnerabilities in our systems and our frameworks and our processes and our cultures. There's so much that we can be doing and looking at internally, because the people who do come out the other side of this will be, this is natural selection, it's Darwinism. And we're living evolution right now. It is adapt or die. And those of us who can say, I'm not afraid to be wrong, or I'm not afraid to say that something isn't working and we're going to make a change just to make a change. No, it has to obviously have a result attached to it that's important. But I think it's an extraordinary opportunity for many of us to take a look at our companies and our people and get better.
Yeah, and I don't want to say it's like optimistic or, you know, you get excited in that scenario, but I look at challenges as very exciting. And when something like this is, I think it's just knowing your own core self. And when this happens, knowing, yeah, I can take it. Everything's going to be all right. I just need to keep going on the path rather than.
I mean, that's the point of the article I wrote, is that they don't pay us to be leaders in the good times, whatever that means, right? This is the time. And this is why we're in the position we're in. It's the tough times where we can make the most impact to our people, our customers, their customers, our communities, right? It's an extraordinary opportunity for a lot of us. And for those of us who are fortunate enough to have jobs, fortunate enough to have food, and to have shelter, and to have all these things, I mean, you gotta, exactly. I mean, I think you gotta take advantage and do what you can to give back. It's a very human moment for us, and we are in a digital world, but it's an extraordinary opportunity for digital people to become very human, I would say.
I told my team when we kind of gave them the pep talk, and the new reality is, solving problems for clients now will earn you a client for life. Like this is when they need us. Solve problems today, and you got a loyal customer for life.
That's right. You know, business-wise, you know, don't lose money, but you don't need to make a lot of money right now either, right? It's really about stability, right? And the whole world is volatile right now. How much stability can you bring in your partnerships for your clients? That's really where they get the value from us, and that stability comes in our expertise.
Yeah, it's about a time of keeping them, not going and trying to get new ones.
Yeah, exactly.
So how can people get a hold of you, Jason?
Oh gosh, you can find me on Twitter at TheRealJR99. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me at jason@crowdfavorite.com. Yeah, you can find me anywhere you want to find me. I'm out there. I'm not on Facebook. I have an account. I haven't been on Facebook in a while, so you can't. At least I'm off that one. You may find me for Twitter, but I'm not on Facebook these days. I don't have Instagram. Sorry, everybody. I'm a Gen Xer. I don't have the extrovertedness in me. I just want my grunge music. You know, that's all I want.
Little bit of Pearl Jam and a plan.
You know, hey, that's my poster back there.
Right on, man. Real quick story. I guess we can close on this. It was right after 9/11. You know, Eddie Vedder during the time, he wouldn't play Jeremy or any of his big hits, but he felt super sentimental. So he played all of the hits. And it was amazing, man. Everybody was going crazy because at that time you couldn't really be a prick. You know, you really just had to get up there and, you know, do the show that everybody wanted to see.
Yeah. I saw him give an interview about Alive where when he wrote that, he wrote it from a very negative, like depressing place. And then when he started playing it for like 20 years in front of crowds, the actual theme of the song changed from the crowd into something very positive. It was like, hey, you are still alive is a very positive thing. When he wrote it, it was like, I'm still alive is like a very negative thing. And it's interesting to see how that evolved over time. But I could nerd out on Pearl Jam.
I know, you and me both, brother. All right, Jason, it was such a pleasure, man. Thank you so much, brother.
Awesome. Thank you, David John. I really, really, really enjoyed it. And I look forward to being back sometime soon.
Absolutely. Likewise.
Awesome.
Take care.
Awesome. All right, guys. Take care.
All right, Dave. How do you think that went?
That was excellent. I mean, as an operations guy, that stuff was
Near and
super
dear.
interesting to me, and that was all up my alley. So, I mean, the whole time I'm sitting there nodding my head. I'm like, yep, we're doing that. Yes, we're doing that. So, feels good. I mean, again, I feel like we're lucky to be able to talk to all these people and get a summary
A
look,
window.
yeah, at everyone's companies, and then we can just kind of become the best version of everyone.
Yeah, I love that. I love how open. I mean, I could like I said, I could have had that conversation go on and on. I got, I still got a day job that I got to do, so I'm trying to keep and be mindful of time. But yeah, every little facet that he was going into, I was like, oh man, I want to talk about that. Oh, I want to talk
Yeah,
about that. Yeah, just super interesting guy, super open. I love their shop. The work that they do is incredible.
very similar
And
to us. I mean, honestly, our processes are very similar. They're
except
just
the
they're
distribution culture, that's not something, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely something that we don't have that I love, that intrigued. Also, they
I mean,
have external resources in other countries. That's something that's really intriguing too. That was a rabbit hole I felt like I wanted to go down, but I know based on
honestly, it makes 100% that you don't have a development team in New York anymore. It's like, unless you're Google, unless you're Facebook. I mean, if you're based in New York, you have to have developers outside of New York. It's not cost effective. It doesn't make sense. So
and I agree with the talent. Well, I mean, that speaks directly to the talent and the talent diversity. I guess those are some,
I
quotes
love
we
how
can put
he
around it.
rolled his own eyes when he said that.
Well,
When he was
yeah,
like, "I'm not
we
talking
all
about
know, like,
diversity like
I
that."
know. Like, yeah, a lot of people are really, sick of it because, yeah, we want to include, and we want to, help out with that. So, yeah, I think he was, on the same page with that. Like,
Yeah.
it's more about, the talent. But yeah, yeah, cool guy, man. Great information. I think this is really, timely for anybody that's dealing with the coronavirus. He said he wasn't from the future. I'm going to have to take his word from it. But I think there are a lot of nuggets that people can pull away from that. And so, especially like the information based on Slack, right? Instead of the private messages, there's a certain
Oh,
percentile that you want to manage. I think that's fantastic. A lot of these
I,
companies can, begin implementing that type of behavior.
my gold nugget, to borrow a phrase from back in the day, DMG.
Boom.
I
DMG OG.
the so we already know that we started our process document, episode 4 because of
Yep.
Gabriel,
Mm-hmm.
and I loved it. I think it's been a really great thing. It's going to help our onboarding. It's going to do all those things that he said, but documenting down to the point of, why do we use email? Why do we use Slack? Why do we use,
And what
private
goes in
message?
email? What goes in Slack?
Correct. I
Yeah.
already started writing it. Like, I started putting my notes down. I'm like, I need to document this out because it's so accurate. Because there's so many times throughout, running Oyova for the years and years we've done it, is telling people, write an email about that, or back that up in an email so we have a paper trail. Like, or why did you send that in a group chat? Nobody knows who you're talking to. There's just things like that you do have to teach. And so if you have to teach it, it should be in this document.
The big brother, big sister thing,
I
to
like
me,
that.
obviously, that was near and dear because I've never had somebody train me at any job. I was always thrown to the wolves
Right.
and able to survive. So having a structure like that, and it doesn't have to be like, this, like you'll see servers when they come to your table and they're like, this is Bobby and I'm training Bobby because Bobby doesn't know anything and Bobby's not
Right.
going to get any of the tips. It's not like the shadowing standpoint. I think it's more of just, hey, conditioning someone when you need help, this is the person that you're going to ask, and they're going to check in you once a day to see if you need anything. Just, it's a
So
simple mechanism that can apparently, have a lot of
I
fruit.
love it, and I think it's the right way to do it.
Oh, here it goes.
But
This is a yes, but.
but I like the thrown to the wolves way, because in my opinion, if you like you said, nobody taught me how to do this. Nobody taught me to run Oyova.
But we own a business, and that's literally what that creates, is an entrepreneur saying, you know what, fuck this. I figured this out all on my own.
Right.
What's to say I'm not going to figure out the next step on my own?
But I remember training people on how to do things, and they're like, I don't know how to do that. I'm like, have you never watched a movie? I used to use the line way back in the day. Have you ever watched Mad Men? I'm like, just watch how they portray this job on TV and mimic it. Like
Oh, that reminds me of something my father used to say. You know, he'd say, "Act like you know what you're doing."
yeah, borrow from things. I mean, we make
Yeah.
movies about these things. We make, there's content galore. And if you just say, I don't know how to do it, and that's the end of your road, I don't have any use for you. I need people to be able to go, we hate using the fake it till you make it, but try. Just try. Use your best guess and try to act like this. And then I can critique that. So,
And those are quitters, though. That's a quitter's mentality. Like that to me, it sounds like somebody's literally giving up. And I think the only
right.
true way that people, fail is in the way that we think of, failing is when you give up. That's
Right.
failure.
That's when you're done.
Yeah, it's just okay, cool. Then we have nothing here, and you just want to go up to mommy and ask, what should be done now. It's like I'm not your parent. I can't help you with that, and that's back managing too.
Right.
I need you to bring me the solutions, right? You need to show me something.
So me and my wife, we create a yearly yearbook of our life for the year.
Seriously, I got to see some of these yearbooks.
Pretty fucking awesome. I mean, we have a great
Is
life.
it? I'm not saying you don't have a great life, but a yearly yearbook. It's you guys scrapbook. That's what this is. This is scrapbook.
Well, no, I mean it's Shutterfly. It's click, 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 click.
Digital scrapbooking.
So the thing is, the reason why I bring this up is because we're doing it right now for last year. And what you do is like Shutterfly, give them a plug, is that you can have their designer. You just kind of upload all your photos and then they put it together. And then they submit it to you for review. And if they didn't have that service, we'd never do this. Because they pre-created 80 pages of our year. And there's no way in hell I would have created that or took the time to build each page. I need to be able to critique it. So bringing it back to this conversation, if you come to me with an empty book and say, tell me how to scrapbook, I'm going to tell you to get the hell out of here. I can't use you. I need you to at least try. And these designers just create some stupid pages sometimes. But I'd rather critique 20% than have to build 100%.
Well, it's action, right? If you're not willing to take the action, then my only action is to find somebody else that will.
Correct, 100%.
And quick little anecdote on scrapbooking. I had an ex-girlfriend where everything had to be like, she was a big scrapbooker. So any photos we would take, like, oh, I know exactly where this is going in the scrapbooker. It was it was crazy. Like, and then... Yeah. So every trip, everything had a scrapbook, even if it was like weekends, right? It would be, this is the weekend scrapbook. There was like a library of the scrapbooks. So anytime I hear anything about that, I kind of just, there's some scar tissue there and it's still a bit tender.
So we definitely say comments like, ooh, that's going in the book.
There you go. But you don't force each other, right?
It's all digital, so we just make sure that we save it to someone's phone or Facebook or something. But we did have a catastrophe this past year. Is my phone, shit the bed, and we lost about 6 months worth of memory. So we had to kind of back collect from Facebook. So
what about the cloud?
The thing that made Facebook made it into the book.
No cloud, no backup with the cloud there.
Some of it, but not all of it. And
I lost a phone in Amsterdam. One of the best trips. I've had some pretty amazing trips, but that was a really amazing one. I either got lost or stolen. I think I lost it. I'll take the blame. But yeah, some of the photos on there, the amount of money I would give for that is insane. And I remember going to the police station and talking to the cop who was super friendly about it. He was just, no, you're probably never going to get that back. But go ahead and fill this out.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
I like it. Look, I got to be honest. You look back. So to me, that the yearbook, getting it printed, to me is the only natural progression of why the fuck do we take all these photos on our phones? Do you ever sit back and just scroll through 4-year-old photos on your phone?
No. Most of mine are like of whiteboards and stuff, though. I'm not a big. I try to take more photos so I could appreciate moments, because I found one from like 2013. I was like, oh wow, that's why people take photos. That feels really good to look at that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I feel like if you don't print them into a book or get them cataloged, because I don't want to have to maintain an 8-year-old photo in my cloud. I don't want to pay $25 a month to maintain it, and it's not that important. We're not talking about, wedding photos. Those are different. The big moment photos are different. I'm talking about, we went to St. Augustine.
Yeah. Huge moment.
Yeah. It's just, it was a good weekend. I want to remember that.
Yeah, and I think it's having a structure in place. I don't know how the hell we got on this topic, but
Process.
sure enough, process. Yeah, the process, right?
Yeah.
But I guess to bring this thing full circle, I have a really good feeling. As we were talking about, a lot of our team members are going to be asking for this
Absolutely.
remote experience. I think us solidifying the way that we manage from a fully distributed standpoint is not going to hurt us, especially pulling in talent from other places. There's other people that I know I would want to work with, have them on our team. And, if they live in Bangladesh or they live in Seattle, I think us having the structure necessary to work with those people is a really good growth strategy.
I could see working with Jason easily and his organization. There's so many alignments there that that's good stuff.
Yeah, cool guy. We'll definitely have him on again. I made some notes that to pull him back on.
Great.
Or that I'd like to talk with him. I mean, whether he's going to come on or not, it's going to be, of course, up to him.
I mean, for our first boomerang guest, we have to think long and hard. I mean, that's a special, forever in history. They'll be the first.
The first return, yeah. I need to see like what Johnny Carson did or something. Not that I'm comparing myself to him at any means.
Well, Saturday Night Live, they have their, what is it, Green Jacket for like Justin Timberlake and Tom Hanks and all the guys that have hosted 6 times or more. They all have their.
They just stole it from a golf. They stole it from golf.
Maybe, pretty sure, yeah.
It's green. Interesting.
I don't know if it's green, but it's a jacket, and they make a big deal of it now. So every time somebody like for the 6th time or 5th time hosts, they bring all of them back and make a big deal about it.
Huh? Yeah, that's something to consider. We should. Yeah, I don't know. We need to ship them something because they need to have that prior to the episode, right? So they need to whatever that is. Yeah,
like a little trophy, a little DMD trophy.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, a little mountain climber, a rock. We can get them. What are they? Remember eBay? Rock. You remember the eBay when people were selling like what were they called? Like the rocks
Pet
on
rocks.
There. Pet rocks. Yeah. Then that was pretty much the downfall of that market.
Speaking of rocks, and I'm going to tell you something that my wife, but this is late in the episode. Nobody's ever watching this part.
Okay, fair enough. I like that.
She used to be on Nickelodeon Guts. She was on an episode. Do you remember
that? The show Guts.
What?
No, I remember. Is it the slime one? I remember the slime one.
No. It's the one at the end that they had to climb a giant rock called the Aggro Crag.
Was Mark Summers the host?
Yes.
Okay. Well, he was the host of all of them there, so I don't think that's a real good delineator.
No, it's the other guy though. That
Scott Summers, wasn't that his name?
No, it was something. Yeah, you have to look it up, but
right.
But yeah, it's she slipped on the Aggro Crag on the final one and lost because she.
Oh, this was a game show.
Yeah.
Oh, who beat her? Does she know the person that beat her?
Like, does she keep up with them now?
Well, no. Like, did she know that person then? It's like, oh, it was Claire, or it was Daryl.
And they gave them all funny names, so she was Erica the Equalizer.
Oh, that's a pretty cool name. So you call her that every now and then.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Or we're flipping through the movie channels now, and like the new Denzel Washington movies out for rent called The Equalizer.
Yeah. Then Michael Caine. Yeah, Michael Caine was in the first ones from the '80s. Those were really good.
Yeah. So I'd always be like, "You want to watch The Equalizer?"
How romantic.
I always thought about for her 40th, which is coming up soon, trying to find a way to recreate the Aggro Crag so she could rerun it and not slip this time.
Oh, that's real sweet. What if it like brings back some traumatic memories though? She starts like having an anxiety attack. Oh yeah, slips again. That'd be horrible. Yeah.
Right.
Like, this is the worst 40 ever.
Did you ever watch this an old school movie with Kurt Russell and I think Robin Williams where they played on a football team? And
Robin Williams and Kurt.
Yeah, he played like a bumbling wide receiver. So they were on the shitty football team, and then their crosstown rival, which was at the rich school, was the Tigers, and they always beat them up. And they ended up getting a rematch when they're all like 35 years old. And like Goldie Hawn was in it.
Are you sure you're just not mixing up a bunch of movies together?
No.
Because Goldie Hawn was the coach of that one, like in Chicago or whatever, of like the down and out school.
There's that too. Let me look it up. I'll send it to you. But it's excellent, and it's kind of like they relive their high school memories and tackle those old demons. It's an excellent 80s movie.
Really?
Maybe even late 70s, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm good that we got that on the podcast. Our guests are going to definitely want to hear about that.
Well, at this time, nobody's Nobody's listening to this.
This isn't like it's 4 in the morning.
Our time.
Somebody's got this on their car and they're like trying to hit the button. Like,
Right.
in any event, I think this is a good place to close. And then also, since nobody's listening, this is a great time to promote the end of, our next event, right? So it's got ourselves September 21st, 22nd, after 23rd in Dallas, Texas. Please join us for the DMG group. Go ahead and, if you're interested, go ahead to digitalmastermind.com and shoot me an email, or shoot me an email at john.sarakis@digitalmastermind.com. Here, I got to spell this out now. JON. T as in Tom, S as in Sam, OURAKIS @digitalmastermind.com.
Awesome.
I know, it's a long
We
one.
might want to create a new mailbox, just j@digitalmastermind.com.
No, then everybody would spell that JAY.
Yeah, that's hilarious. We can buy all those aliases.
All right, my friend. Another great episode, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
All right.